Hey everybody, Rose Matter here, and welcome to part 19 of my Great Ace Attorney Chronicles Let's Play. In the last episode, we discovered quite a bit of new information related to the case. The big thing is that there was an extra person at the scene of the crime that wasn't accounted for, potentially working with these Skulkin brothers, because it turns out that there was an extra bullet that we didn't know about, which means there was another gun, and that the blood splatter found at the scene of the crime was not Sholmes like we'd assumed, but was who we can safely assume was Eggert Benedict, the guy who got into that altercation with Gina and tried to take her the jacket and the music box discs. I always had trouble with that. So we're assuming that he's working with the Skulkin brothers and McGilded to try and get those discs. But the reason is why, and who is this guy, this Eggert Benedict, which is a fake name. Surprise, surprise. So we are going to try and hopefully get Eggert on the stand, or whatever this person's name is, and find out exactly what his whole deal is. So without further ado, let's get back into this case, and let's see what happens next. Ah, Gina, how are you holding up? I'm starting to feel quite warmly towards her frequent cold shoulders now. Ginny, are you alright? Why aren't you saying anything? What's the point, eh? Why go to all this trouble and fight so hard for the likes of me? What? Well, you saw it, that picture. Well, maybe let's get an explanation from you before we write you off. What picture? Ah, you mean this, the photograph taken by Hurley's red-handed recorder. Just explain what was going on in the picture, Gina. Well, I didn't think it would have captured a scene like this, that's for sure. It's hopeless. Anyone who sees that's gonna think I did it, ain't they? Well, I won't pretend it wasn't a bit of a shock when the prosecution first presented it to the court. Surely, you've gotta have your doubts about me now. You can't still think I'm innocent. Of course I can. Ginny, why don't you talk to us? Exactly! Tell us what really happened that night. Eh? Runo's cleverly managed to piece together a lot of new information, but still, we'd really like to hear it from you. Alright then. It was after we had that dinner together at your place, right, Iris? Then we all had a chat up in your office, didn't we? Yes, I remember. After that, I just couldn't get to sleep, so I slipped out and went down the street to the 2-to-1, to Windibank's place. I had to know if Iris's story was there or not, the Hound of the Baskervilles. I don't know what it's about or nothing, but if you ask me, there's something in it that Sholmes don't like, something what he don't want people reading. So that's why I lied to Iris about sticking it in, lug with Windibank for safekeeping. I'm guessing it's something to do with her father. At least, that's what I thought at the time. So you broke into Windibank's. I just had to know if it was there or not. I mean, I had no idea all that was going to kick off, did I? I struck the lock and snuck inside. It was dark as you like in there. So I gave the oil lamp on the counter a bit of wick, and that's when... What do you think you're doing? I nearly died, I did, and next thing I knew... I'd grabbed the gun off the counter and was waving it in the air like, I don't know what. So, okay, so she admits that she was grabbing it for... some reason. Oh, you're the girl who was in here this afternoon. I didn't think pickpockets went in for armed robbery. The mantle script. Have you got it here? Did Sholmes leave a load of papers with you? A story. So she did seem to have threatened him with it to get her into the back room. Oh, not great, Gina. Not great. I beg your pardon? The Hound of the something or other. If it's here, I want to see it. I'm sorry, young lady, but I'd sooner die than relinquish an article belonging to one of my customers. Poor Windibank, he was like, seemed like a solid dude, and I don't want it. What would I do with it anyway? I just want to see if it's here, that's all. Oh, you want to see it, do you? I want to know if Sholmes really pawned it here or not. Please, just let me see it, and I'll go. Oh, very well then. But, for pity's sake, stop waving my gun around, would you? Okay. So then the old cove unlocked the storeroom door, and we both went inside. And it was there all right. The mantle script. Sholmes weren't lying after all. You did all that just to check for me, Ginny? Anyway, then there was a bit of a kick-up out in the main bit of the shop. The Skulkin brothers arriving on the scene, yes. What was that noise? Someone's breaking in. Dear me, is there some burglars' convention here tonight that I don't know about? I think I forgot to shut the door behind me. Sorry. I'd better go and take care of it. Could I possibly have my gun back? Oh, well, I'll come with you and... Now, don't be foolish, young girl. You must stay right here. Don't leave this room under any circumstance. Oh, was he trying to protect her? Like, this is so sweet. And with that, he took the gun out of my hands and walked back out into the shop. I hung back in the storeroom like he said, straining my ears in the dark to hear what was going on. It sounded like they got into a bit of a scrap. I started to think I should help, see? So I was just about to go out to the storeroom myself when... And there's the 2 shots. So she heard 2 shots. I heard a couple of shots go off. 2, I think. Almost at the same time. Okay, so that's interesting. So we've got the gunshot with Sholmes. That's 1. There was the gunshot with that struck Windibank. So that's 2. And then there was the gunshot that I'm assuming hit Eggert. So I guess Windibank, because yeah, there was the bullet that wasn't accounted for because they assumed that the gun had been used, like Windibank's gun had been used to shoot Windibank. So I'm guessing Windibank fired a shot, hit Eggert, and then one of them shot at Windibank and killed him. And then there he was, right at me feet, lying face down on the floor. I was right next to the storeroom door, so I slammed it shut and locked it quick as you like. Okay, that's interesting. So there's 2 shots. But then he got shot in the back, so if they happen consecutively... Oh, okay, that's... Maybe Windibank didn't shoot them, because, like, how would that happen? Like, unless Windibank shot, turned to run, and then got shot right after? This is something we have to clear up. Because you thought whoever had shot Mr. Windibank might come for you. Yeah, so I went to grab the old cove's gun. I figured I'd put up a fight at least. But when I got a better look at him, I knew. Windibank was a goner. So did she get, like, knocked out, or did she faint? I'm assuming she got knocked out by somebody. Oh, I felt funny in my head all of a sudden. Kind of dizzy. Okay. And after that, I don't remember nothing. So she may have passed out from the shock, but maybe somebody gassed her and put the gun in her hand? Because somebody would have had to shut the door, right? That must be when you passed out, Gina. Oh wait, she shut the door, didn't she? Okay, okay. If I hadn't done what I'd done, the old cove might still be alive. Did you tell the police everything you just told us? Of course I did, but they didn't believe a word of it, did they? All they said was, if I kept telling lies, it'd make things even worse for me. It'll be alright, Ginny. Don't worry. Just stay strong a little longer. Runa's about to put the real culprit through the mill. Yeah, if we can find him. That cove, what was there in the afternoon? That Eggert Benedict? I still remember how he looked at me, like I was nothing. He was there that night. We don't know his real name yet, but I'm convinced that he's involved somehow. Anyway, thank you for telling us what happened, Gina. I appreciate your honesty. You what? You can leave it all in Runo's capable hands now, Ginny. Mr. Naruhodo? Yes? How come you trust me? I don't get it. I mean, have you forgotten what happened here before? Come on, it was only 2 months ago. Me and McGill did. We told you a whole pack of lies. Ed, you got the bog trotter off with him, even though he was the killer. No, I could never forget that. Oh, I did what I thought was best at the time, but the pain of that error of judgment doesn't get any easier to bear. Still, don't forget that I also made you a promise. I told you I'd be on your side to the bitter end, no matter what. But what if I'm lying? You could be working to get another killer off the hook for all you know. I was once in your position, Gina. I was the accused in a trial. You were? Before I left Japan, I was accused of murder. And strange as it might sound, the circumstances of the crime were pretty damning. I was sure no one would believe me. I was sure no one would believe it wasn't me who done it. Oh, Runo. But there was one person who stood up for me, who believed in me, and was prepared to defend me. My best friend. Ryunosuke, no one believes in you more than I do. Leave this to me. All you need to do is put your faith in me, and I'll do the rest. I was so happy I cried. But even then, somewhere inside me, I couldn't help thinking, surely he doesn't really believe in me, not completely. But I was wrong. As soon as my trial began, it was obvious how far he's come, that he had an absolute unwavering belief in me. And, in turn, I developed an absolute, unwavering belief in him. Since then, I came to realize, if you want someone to believe in you, you have to believe in the other person first. What are you saying? I promise you, Gina, that no matter what happens, I'll keep believing in you. So you don't need to worry. I won't let you down. Oh, this is so sweet. Even though I'm a diver and a no-good liar. You're not like McGill did. I know that. Eh? That's right. You're our friend, Ginny. Iris. We know you better than you think. And we've come to the conclusion that you're someone we can trust. Yes. That's really all we need to know. Exactly. Mr. Naruhodo, Aw. Defendant Gina Lestrade and her legal representative. Court proceedings are about to resume. Please head to the courtroom immediately. Yes, of course. Thank you. I'd been both a defendant and a defending lawyer in my time, so I knew only too well just how hard it was to put all your faith in another, and I also knew just how hard it was to bear the burden of another putting all their faith in you. This is it at last, the final chapter, the final battle. Wish me luck, Susato-san, and I hope you're watching over me too. Partner. Aw. But I don't like that. I hope you're watching over me. It sounds like she's dead. I hereby call this court to order as we resume the trial of Miss Gina Lestrade. Lord Van Zeeks, have you successfully subpoenaed the witness? The subpoena was delivered to the communication station where the man works immediately, my lord. However, the heavy rain had delayed the arrival of his carriage, it would seem. Uh-oh. I see. Then let us turn our attention to Inspector Gregson's precis of the case heard by the court this morning. The glaring omission of the third bullet in your report is a serious blunder, Inspector. Yes, I can only apologize, my lord. Gregson's like, Iris, please don't put this in your next story. And although the defense's chemical analysis of the blood at the scene makes for a compelling argument, I cannot permit such untried methods to be used as evidence in my courtroom. It's a big mistake to cross Hurley and me. A very big mistake. Iris, do not threaten the judge, please. My lord, the subpoenaed witness has just arrived in the building. Alright, here we go. Thank you, officer. Show him to the stand without delay. Mr. Eggert Benedict. I didn't expect to be crossing paths with him again so soon, and certainly not like this. Thank you for complying with the court's subpoena at such short notice, sir. But of course, my lord, as an upstanding member of London society, it's my pleasure to oblige. I just like to imagine this guy dresses like this when he just is at the office, just like a regular communication office. Now, kindly state your name and occupation for the record. Ashley Graydon, communications officer. Interesting, very different from Eggert Benedict. Mr. Graydon and I both work at London's Central Communications Station. Now, perhaps somebody would kindly explain what all this is about. So, if he actually was shot, if the blood analysis is correct, he should have a wound somewhere, I would imagine. You were apprised of the situation by the court officer on your way here, I presume. Yes, I was. Something to do with a murder that took place at a pawnbroker's on Baker Street. And some nonsense about me having been there on the night in question. That is the accusation, indeed. This really is beyond a joke, you know. Very well. Without further delay, the court will hear your testimony now, Mr. Graydon. You will respond to the accusation made against you under oath. Gladly, my lord, gladly. I love the theatrics. That's kind of funny how I initially thought that this guy was that actor, the Shakespearean actor that was in the last trial. Naturally, I have occasion to make use of pawnbrokering services from time to time. But are you seriously suggesting I colluded with these thugs to break into the place on the night of the murder? I have no intention of admitting to such an outrageous accusation, even if certain parties here present a claim that my blood was found at the scene. Some Scaramouche... Scaramouche? Is that the word? Some Scaramouche detective's homebrewed tincture can hardly be taken as serious evidence. Well then, just provide a blood sample, and we can clear this up very quickly. So, you deny the accusation completely, do you? I must say, I am dismayed. For the highest court in the land to be swayed by this self-professed detective's toy. It was the will of the jury, and our great British justice system demands the jury's will is upheld. Then, it would seem we have the misfortune of a most inept assembly of jurors today. Also not a good idea if the jury has a big sway on how things go to insult them. By golly, how long am I expected to be detained here? If, following the defense's cross-examination, your involvement in this matter has not been established, you will be free to leave immediately. Good. Then I shall be away in time for afternoon tea. Some small consolation, at least. He's giving me vibes of that first woman, Giselle, where she just had the same thing. She's like, oh, I have tea to go to. I can't be held up much longer. I'm gonna keep you here for a while, my dude. Let us not hold up Mr. Graydon any longer than necessary, counsel. Proceed with the cross-examination. So, we meet again, Mr. Eggert Benedict. Or is it Mr. Graydon? Yeah, why'd you give a fake name? My apologies. You are... Ryunosuke Naruhodo, defense lawyer. We have met. If you say so. Ashley Graydon. Enchanté. I don't know if I'm assuming he's playing dumb, or if he just cares that little about other people that he legit does not remember me, despite the fact that we just met a couple of days ago. So... Ah, I trust we can conclude this quickly. I want him to wear that hat. Wear it, but I'm not holding your flashy hat while we do. You know what? Of all the things that's like between him and especially Phoenix, the things that have been thrown at him during trials, this is not even close to the worst thing. Yes, we even met in the very pawnbrokery where the crime took place on the afternoon of the day in question. Though, of course, you introduced yourself by a different name at the time. Yeah, let's get into that. Why would you give a fake name? It was Mr. Eggert Benedict, I believe. Tell me, what made you... The witness is here to testify about events that took place that night. He is under no obligation to answer such unrelated questions. You can't be serious. Thank you, because I certainly do not feel inclined to answer such an inappropriate question. So he's going to be evasive, is he? In an effort not to give anything away. This could be tricky. Have you seen these two men before? We have to establish, yeah, there's some, like, relation between them. This pair? No, I don't associate with criminals. Said by a man who introduced himself as Eggert Benedict. I'd like to know who I have to thank for this. Who made this outlandish accusation against me? The young lawyer there in the black. This is a farce. Whose idea was it to permit an outsider to work in a British court anyway? Well, needless to say, I have no intention of admitting to such an outrageous accusation. Of course you don't, but we're going to drag it out of you. Where were you around 1 in the morning on the night in question, sir? That is past the hour at which I would normally retire. Certainly. I was not in the company of these rapscallions. You're able to prove that. Objection. Listen carefully, my learned Nipponese friend, for you appear to be under a gross misapprehension on this point. What do you mean? The witness maintains he was not at the scene of the crime. He has no obligation to prove his absence. It's on me, right? I have to prove he was there, not that he has to prove that he wasn't there. If your accusation is that the witness was present at the scene, the obligation lies with you to prove your assertion. I always want to call assertion. I always want to say assertion. You will fulfill that obligation before putting any more unreasonable questions to the witness. A silent victory wiggle. Thanks. Blood was found at the scene of the crime. There's no question of that. Mr. Sholmes's chemical analysis has positively identified the substance as such. But I am not the only human to have blood running through my veins, am I? How can you be sure the blood is mine? It could equally be the blood of one of these two miscreants. These two look away every time he looks at them. It's like he's their boss or something and they don't want to, like, get him mad or something. Every individual's blood has a slightly different composition, it seems. Mr. Sholmes's chemical is able to differentiate. Spare me the science lesson. Who is this Sholmes character, anyway? Oh, I assumed all Londoners would know the name. He's a renowned detective. So, even you are unable to bring yourself to say, great detective. A great detective, you say? Tch, now we're in the realm of fairy tales, are we? Ooh. Okay. Alright, let's pursue that. Excuse me. Do you have something to say about that, Mr. Skulkin? What? Me? No, the Mr. Skulkin next to you. Right, I've had it up to here with this. How many times have I got to tell you? Yes, I know. You're not Big Bruv Skulky. Mr. Nash Skulkin. Eh? Core blimey, governor. You what? Is it not the case that when Mr. Graydon just spoke, a thought went through your mind? Would you care to share that thought with the court? Eh? Me thoughts? I don't have none of them. It must have been him. You what? Mr. Nash Skulkin, answer the question, please. What went through your mind when Mr. Graydon just spoke? Nothing. Honest, Gov, nothing. I was just thinking, if he waves his arms around like that much more, it'll open up the wound again. Oh! Oh! Oh, you dummy! Oh, you beautiful dummy. If he waves his arm around like that, it'll open up the wound again. Oh, what wounds? Where he took the bullet, of course. It was only 2 days ago. It ain't gonna be healed up yet. Oh my gosh. So I was, well, you know, I was worrying for him, and, oh, oh, Ells Bells. Oh, the look I can imagine that's, what's his name, Ashley's giving him right now. Mr. Graydon, did you hear that? Oh, what? Your comrade is worried about you, it seems. On account of your injured arm. My lord. Yes, Mr. Graydon. I have no idea what these two wretches are talking about. Look at it. Look at you. You couldn't be more obvious grabbing your arm. Certainly, I shouldn't be expected to answer anything in relation to their mindless insinuations. We know that someone other than the victim was hit by a bullet at the scene of the crime 2 nights ago. And from the height of the bullet hole in the wall, that person was likely hit in the upper arm or thereabouts. I'm guessing in the 1900s they probably didn't have hospital records. We couldn't just... Then again, he could have given a fake name. But if we could just find, like, records that he went to the hospital for a gunshot wound. Perhaps you'd allow a court official to examine your arm, sir. The left arm that you're currently clasping with your right hand, as if in pain. He's not very smart, is he? It's like, I know that that's kind of a... automatic reflex, I guess, but still, you think he'd be a little bit more sneaky about it. No, I refuse. You have shown no evidence whatsoever that links me to these common thieves. Accordingly, I'm not obliged to permit any such invasion of my privacy. As I have already said, I'm completely uninvolved in all this. I've never had anything to do with the pawnbrokery where this fellow was killed whatsoever. Oh, well, that's just wrong. That's just wrong. We probably have some, one of the things in our court records. The slip or whatever that you gave. I take offense at the insinuation that I was in any way involved. You claim to have had nothing whatsoever to do with Mr. Windibank's pawnbroker. You literally said in the first, thing, I think you said that you used the pawnbrokery often. I guess you didn't say specifically Mr. Windibank's, but still. My lord, the defense would like that last statement to be added to Mr. Graydon's formal testimony. Well, that's just an easy one to disprove. Very well, counsel. What a dumb slip of the tongue. You could have said I didn't have anything to do with that night or the crime, but to specifically say he's never had anything to do with the pawnbrokery at all. Continue with your testimony, Mr. Graydon. Oh, I think he knows he slipped up there. Alright, well, let's go ahead and present. Alright, let's examine. Okay, so that's the 10 shillings. Oh, I think that was... Okay, so let's check this one. £1. Oh, maybe... Okay, I'm trying to think which... Was one of those his? Or he said it was his anyway. Would I be able to present the music box disc? We could try it. Yeah? Alright, there we go. And then, maybe we can test the blood and just confirm. Have you ever seen this disc before, Mr. Graydon? Why? Is it supposed to mean something? At first I thought he had a slip of paper, but then I remembered that was Gina. Gina deposited that, and then he tried to pretend like that was his. This disc was, until the day of his murder, in pawn at Mr. Windibank's shop. It was redeemed by the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade, that afternoon. However, somebody mysteriously appeared to try and take it from her. And that somebody was you, of course, wasn't it, Mr. Graydon? As I have reiterated numerous times now, you are mistaken. That was not me. I've never seen that disc before in my life. It may have escaped your notice, but there is a small smear of blood on the disc. Ah, yes, resulting from an abrasion of the thumb, perhaps. That's right. The surface of the disc is covered in hundreds of tiny metal bumps. In the skirmish to acquire the disc, the thumb of the person who tried to take it suffered minor lacerations. So, while the disc bears the remnants of that skirmish in the form of the smear of blood, the problem is we still can't use the blood testing thing. It's not admissible evidence, so... The thumb of the person in question must bear the remnants also, in the form of a scratch. Ooh, that's reaching. I don't know if they're gonna let us do that. Good gracious, indeed it must. Mr. Graydon. You refused to allow a court officer to examine your arm before. Are you now going to refuse to allow us to examine your thumb? Because I have no doubt that it bears a small scratch consistent with a smear of blood on this disc. I feel like that's reaching a little bit. Well. I mean, a gunshot wound is one thing, but a scratch on the thumb, he could write that off as being, I cut myself with a knife cutting vegetables or something, you know? It would seem I underestimated you. What is the meaning of this? So, you admit it now. You admit you have a scratch on your thumb from when you attempted to take the disc from the defendant. Order. Well, Mr. Graydon. It would appear there has been something of a misunderstanding here. I did not attempt to take the disc, as you put it. No, quite the reverse. What are you trying to say? It's really quite simple, you see. The disc was mine from the outset. Is there some crime in taking an item that you own out of pawn? What? It would seem, Mr. Graydon, that in this piece of evidence, my learned friend has established a link between yourself and the incident. Accordingly, you will tell the court everything you know about this disc now. Yeah, let's get into more about this. As you wish. Though I'm quite sure it has nothing whatsoever to do with the pawnbroker's murder. There's a note on the disc saying, "For McGilded," but the item belongs to me. The redemption ticket was stolen from me by the accused, that filthy gutterling, on the day in question. I proceeded at once to the shop in order to explain my situation and redeem my article. In the end, of course, the disc was taken by the police. In other words, I had absolutely no reason to break into the shop later that same night. So now we have to establish why he would be in the shop. What was he there for? Did I hear you correctly, sir? McGilded, you say? The famous London philanthropist who perished in this very courtroom 2 months ago after being acquitted of a distinctly messy murder? Yes, my lord. The one and the same. Good lord, Mr. Graydon. Are you saying Mr. McGilded and yourself were acquainted? Yes, that's correct. Order. Well, I certainly didn't expect to hear that name uttered here in my courtroom again. According to what Gina told us, this disc was placed in pawn on that fateful night 2 months ago. McGilded himself gave instructions to deposit it at Windibank's. It's funny that Mr. Graydon here is claiming the disc belongs to him then, isn't it? In all likelihood, he's lying. So, he appeared that afternoon at Windibank's in order to get his hands on McGilded's disc for some reason. Maybe it's got something that has to do with him, some sort of, what's the word, incriminating evidence? Because thing is, it's for music, but could it be something like people could just be speaking? It's almost like a recording? Counsel, you will commence your cross-examination, please. Would you care to explain how this belongs to you? As you will observe, a communications officer such as myself commands a fine salary. You are certainly exquisitely dressed, sir. So, you see, I have little need to make use of the services provided by the pawnbrokery trade. However, I did once find myself in difficulties having misplaced my purse whilst on an errand, which is why I pawned my fine black overcoat to the broker in question. You claimed that was your overcoat. Obviously, and in my haste I clean forgot that the music box disc was in its pocket. And yet, there is a note on it that reads, "For McGilded." I am a collector of rare and unusual music box music. I first met Mr. McGilded at a gentleman's club in the city and was interested to discover that he shared my penchant in that area. So, the disc in question. It's a pre-production sample. I promised to let Mr. McGilded hear it, but then you forgot that it was in the pocket of the overcoat you were forced to pawn. Yes, exactly. Gina didn't mention any of that in her testimony 2 months ago, did she? No, because McGilded had threatened her to keep her mouth shut, which means if we dig too deeply here, it's going to expose Gina's perjury. Ooh, I gotta be careful, I guess. Oh dear, this is complicated, isn't it? Let's leave it alone for the time being. I'm guessing at some point it will have to come out. Gina may be accused of, lying in court, but way better than murder. So, you're saying that Miss Lestrade lifted the ticket from your pocket or bag? That's right. Despite being mindful of danger when walking in the insalubrious areas her kind frequent. Miss Lestrade did no such thing. Well, of course you would take that stance, but the girl is a regular offender. You come to the pawnbrokery that day prepared with all the information you needed to identify the defendant. You were looking for her. That's what brought you to Windibanks. To get your hands on Mr. McGilded's disc. Objection! My learned friend is a veritable font of nonsense. Nonsense? I concur with the prosecution. Counsel, you will refrain from conjecturing in this way. Is that clear? Yes, my lord. Then I will continue with my testimony for what possible use it can be. I proceeded at once to the shop in order to explain my situation and redeem my article. Had you ever been to Windibanks before? Only once, for the purposes of pawning something, but, like many, I enjoy browsing in such establishments. So, when you noticed the pickpocket had taken your ticket, you chased after her. Is that correct? Yes, that's right. I didn't notice at first, of course. Such is the art of the pick purse. But when I did, I headed to the pawnbrokery at once, in order to reclaim my coat before the thief could. I was merely trying to recover what was rightfully mine in the first place. Ugh, he can say what he likes because he knows we have no evidence to contradict him on this. Yes, it was taken by Inspector Gregson here, wasn't it? That's right. This was the very man. Apparently, the police are collecting anything that has a connection to Mr. McGilded. Oh, as evidence. Okay. Excuse me. Is something wrong, Inspector? What do you mean? The last remark Mr. Graydon made in his testimony seemed to trouble you in some way. Eh? No, it didn't. It's nothing. Leave it alone. Let me ask you this, Inspector. Why is Scotland Yard gathering Mr. McGilded's possessions? I can't tell you something like that, Sunshine. What is it, Inspector? Investigative secrets? Yes, exactly. You should know all about that. Magnus McGilded, who died so unexpectedly after his trial 2 months ago. A man renowned throughout the capital for his great contributions to public life, yet he had a dark side, too. Where are you going with this, Van Zieks? I suppose the police are dealing with the aftermath of his nefarious activities, are they? That's enough. Coppers like me have duties to carry out that we're not even at liberty to talk about. That's all you need to know. Duties conferred by Lord Strongheart, I presume. Ah! Now we're getting into the Strongheart connection here. I always had my feelings about that guy. Thought he was up to something. The Lord Chief Justice appears to have great faith in you, Inspector. The bottom line is, if you want to get more out of me, you're going to need Lord Strongheart's paw print first. Are we going to bring him to the stand? That would be quite the sight. What's all this about? It's like there's something going on between Gregson and Lord Van Zeeks here. Well, it would appear that the inspector has revealed all he is at liberty to reveal. Maybe Van Zeeks has his suspicions about Lord Strongheart as well. Maybe that's why he left the courtroom for so long and now he's coming back, because maybe he feels like he can flush some information out. I don't know. Mr. Graydon, let us return to your testimony. Gladly, my lord. But perhaps you'd seen something of value among the forfeited items. No, not at all. Oh. A valuer was brought in by the police to assess everything in the shop. Without exception, every article on the shelves was common or garden bric-a-brac. In that case, it's clear that you broke into the shop later that day in order to recover Mr. McGilded's disc. Have you not been listening, man? Even if I'd wanted to recover the disc, you may recall it had been seized by the police that afternoon. It was no more in the shop that night than I. As I keep saying, I simply had no reason to break in. Oh, are we about to say, like, is there another reason? So there was nothing of McGilda's left in the shop that night. Nothing this man might have been after. I wonder if that's really true. Runo, if you have some evidence, then let him have it. I'm dying to see that irritatingly assured expression of his crumble. Okay, let's go in. I'm like, I'm sure there is something, but I'm just like, I'm trying to think of what the heck there is. Oh. Oh. Maybe the ticket, they knew that there was blood on it, so that was like proof that McGilded was behind Mr. Mason's death? The manuscript, maybe? Everybody's after that damn manuscript. Trying to think what else there could be. Oh, wait, what am I doing? That's not what I wanted. Huh. I don't know for now. I'll have to look in a little bit more detail. McGild had slipped the disc in his coat pocket and had it deposited at Windibank's. Then, when he realized he was going to be arrested on suspicion of the omnibus murder, he threatened Gina and forced her to take the redemption. Oh, maybe it's... yeah, it might be the redemption ticket. There's no doubt about it. That witness is lying through his pearly white teeth. The police were obviously after anything left behind by McGilded as well. That's why Inspector Gregson ended up taking the disc into custody that day. But Gregsy's been very strange about all this. There must be a reason for that, I'm sure. I just don't know what it is. For now, I need to focus on exposing the fact Mr. Graydon is lying in his testimony. Alright, let's try, okay, so we will go ahead. Okay, this part here. So, we've got... So there's the two of them here. There's... Ah, what am I doing? There's that one, and there's that one. So let's take a look at both of them. So the coat. Then there's this one here. Oh! The box! The one small box. Okay. So it might be this one then. Let's present that one. There we go. I totally forgot about that. This disc was deposited at Windibank's on Magnus McGilded's instructions. You knew that, and you went there with the intention of obtaining it for yourself. Conjecture again, and in any case, the disc was taken into custody by the police that afternoon. The witness had no reason to visit the pawnbrokery again that night. Sorry, my learned friend, I love when he flips it back on him, but that's not true. What? Mr. McGilded had another article in pawn at Winterbanks, as this second pawnbroker's ticket proves. Ugh. There were 2 articles belonging to Mr. McGilded on Winterbanks pawnbrokery, and the reason you broke into the shop that night was to recover the second one, together with your 2 accomplices, the Skulkin brothers. This is the second ticket, is it? What had the man deposited? The article description reads, 1 small box. A rather vague description, it seems to me. Are you suggesting that I broke into the pawnbrokery with these clowns in order to steal some trinket box? I believe there are adequate grounds to suspect that you did. This is absurd. Why on earth would I do such a thing? Once the article had been forfeited, I could simply walk into the shop and purchase it. There'd be absolutely no need for me to resort to theft. Oh, that's a good point. Indeed. The witness makes a solid argument. So, that means for some reason, this Graydon fellow needed the small box that very night, does it? It's time to put an end to this nonsense, my lord. Could you be a little less cryptic, Lord Van Zeeks? I do hate to ruin my learned friend's argument, but the truth is quite incontrovertible. On the night in question, no small box was taken from Winterbank's pawnbrokery. And rest assured, the prosecution can prove it. What? Good gracious. Inspector, show the photographic prints to the court, if you please. Yes, sir. What prints? These prints were taken from one of the detective's security cameras. Ah, Hurley's red-handed recorders again. As previously explained using this plan of the shop layout. The victim's establishment was furnished with automatic cameras in 2 locations. One was set to capture the counter where Mr. Winterbank received his customers, and the other was set to capture the shelves on which articles were placed for sale once forfeited. According to the information on this ticket, Miss Gilded's small box had been forfeited already, 2 days before the incident, at 9 p.m. on 13th April to be precise, which means it would have been on the shelves of the forfeited items in the shop front. Now, what I have here is a print taken by one of the cameras about 2 hours before the incident. That's at 11 p.m. on 15th April. The victim certainly had a very full shop, it would appear. And then here we have another print. This one was taken about 2 hours after the incident. I see. So we have 2 pictures to compare. Ah, this is where I'm guessing the stereoscope is going to come into play. They've been talking and talking about the stereoscope, and now we're going to be able to use it, I'm sure. Though I must say that placing them side by side leaves me cold. Dear me, that's starting to make my head ache. Obviously, at Scotland Yard, we considered theft as one possible motive in this case. We explored the possibility that something had been taken in addition to the victim's life. So your men had already compared these 2 prints thoroughly, Inspector. Yes, sir. Well, you know what? You missed a whole-ass bullet at the scene of the crime, so, excuse me if I have doubts about that. Alright, now I gotta look and see if I notice a difference. You probably need to use the stethoscope to notice. It's probably, like, so slight that you can't tell at face value. We counted every single item in these 2 photographic prints. And the yard's conclusion is that exactly the same number are present in both. In other words, nothing was taken from the pawnbrokery on the night in question. Or maybe something just got moved to go get it later? I don't know. And my learned friend's assertion is nothing more than a hopeful fantasy. I don't believe it. If I could have just shown that he'd stolen McGilded's pawned box. There's his little shuffle. Victory shuffle. I might have been able to break him down at last. You know what, Runo? I've been thinking. I wonder if these two photographs really are exactly the same. What? So, counsel, in the light of the evidence put forward by the prosecution, what is your position? It seems that, in fact, on the night in question, nothing was stolen from the victim's establishment. Do you accept the prosecution's assertion? I don't know. Could there be some hidden discrepancy in these two photographic prints somewhere? No discrepancy. Point out. Oh, use a piece of I think we have. Hold up. Yeah, we've got the stereoscope in. Okay, yep, let's do that. Use a piece of evidence. Before I give my answer, my lord, I'd like to try something, if I may. Try something? What do you mean, counsel? I'll need to use a certain piece of evidence from the court record to identify the discrepancy. I'm not entirely sure I follow. Which piece of evidence do you intend to use to help you identify a discrepancy between the two prints? I'd like to use this device, my lord. To view the two prints stereoscopically. Oh, he's gung-ho. Yes, you've caught the bug at last. You can't resist it, can you? You've got the cross-eyed compulsion. Juror number 3, what a surprise. Come on, Runo. Let's put the pictures in place and see what this wonderful contraption shows us. There we go. Now, look through the eyepiece. Oh! I wasn't sure at first, but there is a clear discrepancy between the two prints. What? You must identify the location in question for the court, counsel. Indicate the precise location of the discrepancy, which you speak. I love it. It's literally highlighted for me. Could not be more obvious. That's about as precise as I can get it. Granted, these two prints are almost identical. However, there is one minor discrepancy between them. What? When you view the two pictures stereoscopically. Oh yeah, it did. It shifted a little bit. A single area stands out as being different, the location of the small box. So, I'm guessing they took whatever was... They didn't take the box itself. They probably took whatever was in the box and then put it back on the shelf, but didn't put it back in exactly the right spot. Let me... Wait. Unbelievable. I don't know why the image of him using the stereoscope is so funny. By Jove, you're right. How extraordinary. What this tells us is very simple. Mr. McGilda's small box was indeed not stolen from Windibanks on the night in question. However, there can be no doubt that somebody picked up this particular box and then returned it to its place on the shelves. Are you suggesting the small box originally deposited by Mr. McGilda is in fact... Yes, the very same small box I just identified in those photographic prints. Objection. Mindless guesswork. What if it was? So a box was moved on the shelf, nothing was stolen, which means quite simply that nothing has changed. That may be true, but... Alright, McGilda's box wasn't stolen then. But doesn't the fact it was moved like that change things? It changes nothing. No, it changes everything. I believe this changes everything about the case. How can that possibly be? The crucial point is the fact that what was moved was a small box. In other words, we have to consider what might have been inside that box. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that we need to examine that box as soon as possible. I'm guessing there was like a hidden compartment or something. So, Windibank didn't know that there was something inside the box. A vital piece of evidence is sitting on the shelves at Windibanks as we speak. Objection. That won't be necessary. some little box belonging to a man who died 2 months ago can't possibly be relevant to this trial. The court does not uphold your objection, Lord Van Zeeks. Bailiff, arrange for an officer to go to Baker Street at once. Obtain the small box in question and bring it back here for further examination. Ooh, Ashley's got to be sweating in his very expensive clothing. I'm very curious about this. We should have a report within half an hour. I think perhaps we should recess for a short while until the evidence is brought forth. To be hoodwinked by such a farce. Disappointing. I beg your pardon, Lord Van Zeeks. This is nothing but a smokescreen, a Nipponese specialty, it would seem. What are you trying to say? My learned friend has persisted with the same line of reasoning from the very beginning. That this witness's intent was to steal an article belonging to Mr. McGilded from the pawnbrokery. Yet, common sense tells us that none of the articles have value enough to be worth stealing in the first place. Exactly. It would be beyond absurd to break into a place for the purpose of stealing such commonplace property. If your lordship recalls, Mr. McGilded perished 2 months ago, immediately after the conclusion of his trial. A trial in which he was found not guilty. A trial in which it was established he was the upstanding member of society his reputation implied, in fact. I feel like Van Zeeks is like, he's just jabbing me. Like, I think he knows that McGilded was guilty, and he knows that I know, and he is just, like, needling me with that. So I propose a toast to my learned friend and his most insightful defense. Yeah, he totally knows. The articles this upstanding member of society pawned were entirely ordinary. A black overcoat that just happened to have a music box disc in one of its pockets, and a small box. I assure you, I wouldn't accept even if the man tried to make a gift of such things to me. You know, that does make rather... Wait, it's... Didn't Ashley say that he was the one who deposited that jacket? And now he's saying that it was McGilded who deposited the jacket. That was a little slip-up. The prosecution's argument is undeniably compelling. It is incumbent on the defense now to bolster its argument. To explain what possible significance these commonplace articles pawned by this fine citizen could have. I think he knows that they are McGilded's, and there is something to do with the case, and he's like, basically begging me. He's like, go ahead and present why it's like, and then I'm just going to shoot you down, or you're going to prove to everybody that you let a guilty man go free, because once we find out what these articles, like the importance of the articles, it's going to prove that McGilded is not who people think he is, and that I defended a guilty man. Well, counsel, is your argument in fact demonstrable? Are you able to show proof the disc or the box are in any tangible way related to this case? Well, what's the matter, Runo? We know that they're related, don't we? They're both vital pieces of evidence. Oh, but I think once we make that connection, then that is going to bring up Gina. Gina's going to have to, because she knows the reason for those things and why they're important. But, oh no, this is bad. This is exactly what we didn't want. Yes, of course. You and I both know that. We know McGilded's true character, and we know the disc is significant, even if we don't know why. But if we explain all that to the court at this point, we'll have to acknowledge that McGilded's acquittal 2 months ago was a mistake. Yep. The defense's argument was flawed, and it was Gina who gave the false information, so that's going to work against her in this trial, because they're going to be like, well, she's a liar. She lied in court before. She's doing it again now. Oh no. And that would mean admitting that Gina committed perjury. Yep. We're in a tough spot, and I think Van Zieks knows he's got us in a corner here. But Jenny, could it be Van Zieks knows? He totally knows. Is that why he's doing this now? Because he anticipated everything? But maybe this could be a great opportunity for us. Sorry? What do you mean, Iris? Well, what is it that you always say, Runo? Sooner or later, the truth comes out, every time. Alright, the exact significance of the things that McGilda deposited with Mr. Windibank is something that only Gina can explain to the court. Oh, we're gonna have to put her on the stand, but if I put her on the stand to testify about that, it could critically damage our chances of winning this case. Ooh, tough decision, but the truth has to come out. What is the right thing to do here? Oh, I've gotta have her testify. Plus, I really need to know. I gotta know the truth. My lord, the defense would like to make a proposal. Oh, Gina's not going to be happy about this. Oh, what proposal, counsel? While the court awaits the arrival of Mr. McGilden's small box, I would like to call the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade, to the witness stand. The defendant? To what end? It's to do with the various articles deposited at Windibanks by Mr. McGilden, my lord. Miss Lestrade has information relating to them. I believe it would be beneficial for the court to hear what she has to say. It will prove the significance of the articles in question once and for all. Well, things are becoming interesting. I presume you've considered the implications of the testimony you're proposing. In particular, the impact it will have on the accused's standing, and indeed, your own. I have. Lord Van Zieks, would you care to explain that last remark? The prosecution accepts the defense's proposal. I move to interrupt the cross-examination of the current witness and hear from the accused herself. Very well, if you have no objection. So, the court will now hear the testimony of the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade. You witnesses currently in the stand may step down until further notice. Then I shall bid you good day. Wait. You, sir, shall remain in the stand while Miss Lestrade testifies. As you wish. All right then, Gina. It's time. I know this will be hard, but please put your faith in me here. Good luck, Runo. This should be very interesting. The articles that Mr. McGilden had deposited in Windibank's pawnbrokery are intimately related with the omnibus case, the trial of which was heard in this courtroom 2 months ago. Yes, and I remember this young lady being brought before me in that trial as well. That's right, my lord. Her testimony helped to establish the innocence of the defendant, Mr. McGilden. She's like, where are you going with this, I hope? I hope you're not going to screw me over. The omnibus case was intriguing, to say the least. And now, here we are, all again, the same players in that trial facing each other once more. A twist of fate, perhaps, my Nipponese friend. Allow me to recap the events of 2 months ago. An old brickmaker was stabbed to death in an omnibus running along London's winter streets. Apart from the victim, there was only one other person in the carriage, Mr. McGilden. Naturally, he was the prime suspect for the murder. But as the trial progressed, another possibility emerged. That the murder, in fact, took place above the defendant's head on the roof deck, with the body then being dropped through the skylight into the carriage below. It was Miss Lestrade whose testimony brought that possibility to light. At the time of the incident, Miss Lestrade was concealed under a seat in the carriage, hoping to pick the pockets of unsuspecting passengers. Then, immediately after the trial, having been acquitted of the murder, Mr. McGilden died in this very courtroom in the most extraordinary of circumstances. I'm still doubtful whether he died or not. He probably did, but, everything is possible, I feel like, in this game. A mystery that remains unsolved even now, 2 months on. As indeed does the omnibus murder itself. I wouldn't be surprised if, like, Strongheart himself was the one who ordered McGilda to be killed, maybe to silence him for something. Or maybe it was, Ashley. I still can't get over that name. I'm gonna call him Eggert, because I like that name better. Be that as it may, I recall neither the disc nor this small box being mentioned in the course of those proceedings. Miss Lestrade, would you tell the court now, please? What really happened in the omnibus 2 months ago, I mean? I don't know what you mean. I already said all of what I know. And what about everything you told us yesterday from inside your prison cell? Please, Miss Lestrade, this is extremely important. But she's got to have faith in me. She has faith in me, then she'll do it. Because that's the thing, I have faith in her, she's got to have faith in me too. Remember, little girl, if it transpires that you willfully withheld information in the trial 2 months ago, the Home Office will seek to prosecute you for perjury. It's like you're trying to keep her quiet, dude. Don't say that. I mean, she's got to know, but... and naturally, you will lose all credibility as a witness. Although, let's face facts. You have little credibility to lose. Ginny, don't listen to him. Please, you have to trust Runo now. Iris? We're on your side. She's like, it doesn't feel like it right now. Alright then. I'll talk. It's the right choice, Gina. Well, it would seem that my learned friend is hell-bent on bringing the entire courtroom down about his ears. So be it. I must confess that I'm struggling to understand what on earth is happening here. However, it would appear that Mr. McGilden's pawned articles in that extraordinary case of the omnibus harbor secrets of which we have been hitherto unaware. So, Miss Lestrade, you will now give your testimony before the court about the events of 2 months ago. You will reveal the truth, a commodity sorely lacking in your original statements. This is it, then. Everything's going to come out. Like Van Zeek said. This could bring the whole courtroom down about my ears, but as a lawyer, I'm prepared to take that risk. Truth is, that Brickmaker Cove was in the cabin of the omnibus the whole time. When the Irishman dragged me out from under the seat, I saw that disc on the floor. All of a sudden, I heard a scream from over me head, and that pair on the roof deck went off to call the slops. That's when McGilden slipped the driver some tin to do a run to the pawn shop roundabout. He threatened me not to snitch, not to say nothing to no one about what I'd seen or heard. Good grief, this is outrageous. What you've just told the court bears almost no resemblance to your testimony 2 months ago. As you say, my lord. Then there's every chance. I may have adjudicated an error in McGilden's trial. It sounds very much to me as if the man deliberately deceived this court in an effort to cover up a most wicked of schemes. Without doubt, your lordship is correct. A great injustice was done in this courtroom 2 months ago. The actions of the accused in that trial, of this witness, and of my learned friend, are entirely inexcusable. I don't believe it. The whole trial was a farce? It was lies? That McGilden fellow was rotten to the core, just like that pickpocket. Don't forget that lawyer from the East. They were all in on it together. You're wrong, the lot of you. Mr. Naruhodo, the lawyer there, he didn't know nothing about it. Humbug. I don't think so. Are we really expected to believe that? He really stitched everyone up, didn't he? What an operation, to get the man off scot-free. Unforgivable. Stop. The lies have to stop. Stop. Yes, the defense made a terrible error of judgment. I intend to take full responsibility and suffer whatever consequences are deemed appropriate. However, it's imperative that the court allows the witness to elaborate on her testimony, because the true significance of McGilden's pawned articles must be brought to light. Very well, my learned student friend. Given the depths of calamity you have just plunged yourself into, this may be worth hearing. Words fail me. The situation is utterly deplorable. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, my lord. I will decide upon your fate following the conclusion of this trial. Of course, my lord. Blimey, Mr. Naruhodo. Now, counsel, proceed with the cross-examination. And you were hiding in the cabin at the time as well, weren't you, Miss Lestrade? If I remember rightly, in the storage compartment underneath one of the seats. Yeah, that's right. It's pitch black under there, so you can't see nothing at all. Now, in your testimony 2 months ago, I feel certain that you claimed Mr. McGilded was the sole passenger, did you not? False testimony, my lord. That's what he told me I had to say. But it's important that you tell us the truth now. Were Mr. McGilded and the victim acquaintances? I dunno. But I did hear them talking a lot. What were they talking about? Well, I couldn't hear too well, but if I had to say, I think it was about money or something. They kept talking about buying and not buying. Perhaps business dealings of some kind. Well, anyway, they got louder and louder. It started to sound like a proper fight. I was pretty scared by then. I hardly dared to breathe, and then, all of a sudden, I heard a noise like someone keeling over on the floor. It was bloomin' loud and all. And I believe you let out an involuntary scream. Yeah, that's what gave me away. What's the disc you saw? This disc? Yeah, I reckon it probably was. It was right next to the cove, lying on the floor. Could this disc have belonged to the victim, perhaps? I don't know, but McGilded picked it up pretty smartish. And then he sat the cove with the knife in his belly up on the seat. What did he say to you at that time? He told me not to say a word about what I'd seen or heard to no one. About the disc and all. I was dead scared. The way he was looking at me, I thought, if I didn't go along with it, I'd get stuck with that knife too. Then he started asking me a load of questions, like what my name was and where I lived and that. He asked me about being a diver too. But after a while, what had happened in the carriage was noticed. Yeah, that's right. First there was a kind of rapping noise. There were 2 gentlemen occupying the seats on the roof deck, I believe. That's right. They must have looked down through the skylight and noticed the cope with a knife in his guts. When they screamed, the diver pulled out the horses, and McGilded got me out of sight. Out of sight? Where? Back under the seat where I started off. Once the carriage came to an halt, the 2 coves from the roof ran off to fetch the slops. If they immediately left to fetch the police, it would appear they were entirely unrelated to the incident. And I basically blamed them for potentially being murderers. Oops. So that left McGilded, the driver, and you still at the scene. Yeah, only the driver didn't know I was there, because I was under the seat. I heard the cabin door open, and a voice from outside. The driver, yes? He also testified in the trial, I believe. A fellow who went by the name of Beppo, if memory serves. What did McGilded and the driver say to each other? I don't know what happened, and stuff like that mainly. That's when McGilded slipped the driver some tin to do a run to the pawn shop. That pawn shop obviously being Windibanks on Baker Street. Just a moment, counsel. Do you mean to tell me that the driver gave false testimony in that trial as well? Oh, Beppo. Perhaps the excursion to the pawn shop slipped his mind when he was in the stand. Indeed, Lord Van Zeeks. Beppo already suffered enough by, well, it was of his own doing. He was taking extra money from passengers, but McGilda took off his coat and gave it to the driver. He folded it up, all careful-like, before handing it over. When I saw him do that, I remember thinking, that coat and what's in it has got to be worth a few bob. Yes, Gina was sure the disc must be worth more than Mr. Windibank was suggesting, wasn't she? I remember her quibbling with him over the price that afternoon at the pawnbrokery. The driver looked pretty happy when McGilda flashed some brass in his face. He went running off at a lick. Then the bog trotter called to me and told me to come out from the drag's cabin. Yeah, so Beppo just conveniently forgot all that stuff that happened. He threatened me not to snitch, not to say nothing to no one about what I'd seen or heard. Threatened you? How exactly? Told me I'd only be able to scarp her if I did exactly what said. I just noticed the whole time. Oh! I was gonna say he had his back turned. What's going on over here? Can I? What are they doing over there? Is there something you'd like to share with the court, Inspector Gregson and Mr. Graydon? What is going on here? What the fuck? Wow, I almost missed that. Like, they didn't even alert it or anything. That's sneaky. Like, usually there's, you know, something's going on over there. Like, there's a little noise, but that? Ooh. Inspector, Mr. Graydon. Are they in cahoots? Wah! Blimey, you trying to give me a heart attack? They should not be consulting each other. He's still a suspect. You've been whispering to each other for quite some time now. Tell us, what is the discussion about? Discussion? With this fella? Pull the other one, Sunshine. I don't want to believe Gregson's a dirty cop, but he has been very strange lately about this whole McGilded case. Maybe he's in on it. Maybe he's a dirty cop who's working with this guy. You think I've got anything to talk about with a shady gent like this? And I have nothing to say to this uncouth detective after he deprived me of that disc that was rightfully mine. But they've clearly been talking the entire time I've been cross-examining Gina. If I hadn't noticed that, would that have changed anything? Or is this just like extra stuff? It's as if they've been negotiating. What? You will kindly refrain from talking amongst yourselves while the witness is giving testimony. Yes, sorry, my lord. What were those two talking about? Miss Lestrade, continue with your testimony, please. Well done, Gina. It can't have been easy to tell the truth like that. Ginny's really put her faith in you, Ryuno. Yes, and to thank her, she'll have to face a charge of perjury once this trial's over. So I need to use the time we have now to get as much information out of her as possible. It's time to really go for it. Press her on every statement. Well, I guess I did kind of like... Okay. Alright, so here, and then I interrupted by... So I didn't get her full statement, so let's do that again. Threatened you how exactly? Told me I'd only be able to scarp her if I did exactly what he said. Which included giving false testimony in court 2 months ago? Yeah, that's it. And there was one other thing he said. Which was? He told me I'd have to hang on to the ticket from the pawn shop and make sure not to lose it. The ticket? Well, I never. Said that if he didn't show up to get the ticket off me before 2 months passed, I had to go to the pawn shop and pay the money to keep it in lug, to stop it being forfeited. He left me with some brass to pay for it. But really, why on earth would Mr. McGilded have done such a thing? Depositing his overcoat with a pawnbroker before the arrival of the police. It makes no sense at all. Well, it makes total sense if, you know, it's evidence. There would seem to be only one logical explanation, my lord. What McGilded had the driver deposit at Windibank's was something he didn't want the police to see. Something very important that he needed to hide at all costs. Anyway, after that, he let me go, so I legged it before the coppers showed up. Thank you, Miss Lestrade. Thank you, counsel. I've heard enough. I believe we now have a reasonable understanding of what actually transpired on the omnibus. It would appear on that night 2 months ago, a negotiation was taking place on the omnibus. A negotiation concerning this disc. However, matters did not run smoothly. When the parties involved began to quarrel over price, McGilded took what he wanted by force, at the expense of the other man's life. Which proves my point. The disc is clearly extremely valuable in some way, although I don't understand why as yet. And 2 days ago, precisely 2 months after the omnibus incident, McGilded's coat and its contents were due to be forfeited. I didn't know what I should do with the ticket. I mean, the coat died right after his trial. I knew that. So you decided you'd try to claim the articles as your own. Well, why not, eh? They were only going to be forfeited. Why shouldn't I have got them? Anyway, you can't blame me for thinking about it. Thinking ain't no crime. Miss Lestrade, it would appear Mr. McGilded was prepared to kill in order to take possession of this disc. Do you know why that would be? We just have to find the right music box, right? Each one needs a specific music box to be able to play it. We need to know what is on this disc that is so important. Eh? I ain't got a clue. But I reckon it must be worth a fair bit of brass. He was probably going to sell it. No, McGilded's not worried about money. It's what's on that disc that's important. Like maybe some sort of, something that wouldn't be good to get out into the public. Something about him. And he can't blame me for thinking that. Thinking ain't no crime. My lord. The evidence your lordship requested has been located and is ready for the court's inspection, sir. The mysterious little box deposited by McGilded 2 months ago. There's no doubt in my mind that's a key piece in this far-reaching puzzle. Oh, already? Okay. I wonder how much more is left of this. Oh man, just as like... Oh, I really want to know, like, okay, well, I guess we'll have to wait for next time then. Alright, so that will do it for this episode. A lot of interesting new information coming to light. This mysterious box. The full truth from Gina on the stand about what happens with the McGilded case, which we already knew, but now it's just bringing things to light even more. And Mr. Eggert / Ashley, he's just even more suspicious than we thought, and like I have to believe he's behind it all, but also it seems like there's something weird going on with Gregson as well. Does he have something to do with this? How far up does this really go? Because I've been like suspicious from the start about Strongheart. I'm like, he looks like a villain, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has something to do with this as well. And this is just like, this is all a big conspiracy. This is all like, this is going all the way to the top. So we'll just have to wait and see. I'm not sure how much of this is left. I will see even if I can wrap all this up in the next episode. It may be an extra long episode, but maybe we can do it. I'm really excited to know more about this and the conclusion and how it all ties together. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and stay tuned in the next episode for what I think is going to be the finale of The Great Ace Attorney. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Until then, bye. Special shoutouts to my top tier patrons: Nana, Sparky, Dumbass Loser, Tequila Mockingbird, Puncake G, Derek Nickel, Harry Gazif, Asborn Kennedy, and Icognito.